Hi, welcome back to the GUNK Collective. This is me, Megan. I'm going to be going through 3 different ways you can create small wounds and cuts using 3 different materials, which are latex, Artex, and scar wax. Here I have the 3 mediums that I will be using. In the bottle is latex, and then I've got the Artex in the small box, and then underneath I have the scar wax, which is in the clear container with the yellowy substance. Here I have a scalpel. There's loads of different ones I have. This is just the one that I'm going to be using today. It's got a flat edge there, and then on the other side is pointy. So I can flatten down the mediums, but also create definition within my wounds or prosthetics that I will be applying. Here on the flat end of the scalpel, I will be applying the scar wax. This is going to be applied onto the skin. I've already got a small layer of Vaseline on there just to help the scar wax stick to my skin. And I'm just going to be spreading that down, making sure I'm trying to get rid of all those harsh edges. And with my finger, I'm going to be pressing it down. If it does get a bit stuck, what I'd recommend is getting a bit more Vaseline, which is what I'll go into right now. And that is where I will add that to the scar wax to help it soften down and also help me apply it in a better way and get more seamless edges. This is a yellowy kind of wax, which means that I would need to colour it later on just to make sure that it doesn't stick out as much, because at the moment it doesn't fit my skin tone whatsoever, and this is something that I will need to correct in a little bit. I am then going in with the pointy edge, and I'm just going to create the shape of the wound, which is just going to be a small cut. Now, I couldn't get the lines really seamlessly smooth, but I just patted it down with my finger the best I can. Scar wax is really hard to use, but it is got no drying time, which means you can just keep going in with it. And it's very beginner friendly, but again, is really hard to use compared to other mediums. So here I have some foundation. I'm just going to be applying it and dabbing it down just to try and add some colour and try and match it to my skin tone. This is just something that I will be doing throughout each of them just to make sure that they kind of blend in with my skin a bit more and don't look as fake. Here I've got some powder. This is just a different kind of powder that I have for my prosthetics kit, and I'm just going to get a fluffy brush and powder that on just to make sure that I'm setting the foundation I've just put on, which is the colour. And this will also take away any shine that was on the wax. Here I have my Flesh Tone Volume 2 palette. This is an alcohol-based palette, and I'll just be adding some alcohol and with a brush, just slowly building up the colour, but I don't want it too pigmented, as this is just going to add irritation, and also I just add a bit of colour and definition, as the foundation colour is very flat. I don't want my looks to look flat, I want them to look realistic, and within the skin there are loads of different tones and colours, and I want to show that within the cut as well, as if you put foundation down you are losing all of that, which makes it look less realistic. I here have scab blood or fresh scab. I'm going to be adding this to the inside. Now this is just something that is quite dark, but also quite a dark blood red, which adds a lot of definition, and if you want you can water this down with other bloods or with some alcohol. And you can get runny bloods, you can get thicker bloods, but for me this one works very well. The next one I'm going to be going on to is the liquid latex. So I just have some in this bottle here. And now going forward, I'm going to be getting a bowl and just applying some into the bowl. And with my scalpel, just mixing it about and then applying some to the flat end of it. And with my hand, I'm just applying it onto the skin. Again, I've put some Vaseline onto my skin just to create that protective barrier, as I don't want to pull it off and then I've got all those baby hairs underneath that will rip off, which is not fun. But if you're used to prosthetics, you'll be used to that feeling if you don't apply them, if you don't take them off and apply them properly. But here I have some cotton and I've just rolled it into like a small little strip. And with the latex, I am just going to cover all the cotton in the latex and pat it down, as well as with the other end sculpting it and making sure that it keeps its shape. And in the inside part it will be flatter, and the next bit will also be very flattened down to the skin, so it looks more natural and sunken in. I will then repeat this on the other side, creating a middle gap, which would be the wound, instead of applying it all and then carving it in later, because latex is really hard to do that. So whilst it's wet, it is the best way to mould and do anything you want with it. But once it's dry, it's very hard to change, if not impossible, because once it's set, it's set. So I like to do this, and also you get a bit more control, especially if you're new to prosthetics and using latex. This is a really beginner friendly one. It's got a long drying time, but it does dry, so it gives you enough time to really, work with it and see what you can do. Here's just a simple little cut, but you can do a lot with this. This is really good for burns, big wounds, zombie looks. You can even make prosthetics with latex, but that is a different video in itself because it can be quite complex. I'm now going in with the same foundation colour, just applying a little bit and dabbing it on. I've used a smaller brush just to compact it because latex is a bit more bumpy and less skin textured. So I want to make sure that I'm getting the colour really in there and all the crevices. No, that's not a very nice word, but it's the only way I can describe it. You want to get it into all the little gaps and make sure that it's all coloured, because when you go in with the alcohol-based colours, it can sink in and it can make it go quite watery and funny looking, and it can bring back that yellow colour, which we're trying to avoid here. Now with latex, it is really hard to colour match because of how yellowy white the latex is once it dries. So on here it is a very hard medium to colour correct, but once you get the hang of it, it is a lot better. On the camera here, it doesn't look that great, but you just need to play around with lighting and cameras, and sometimes it look really bad off camera, but on camera it looked brilliant. In this case, it was the other way around. It looked really good in person, but once you're looking at it on a camera, you can see how different the colours are and the shades and tones. So here I'm adding some pink for some irritation. It's a mix between a red, a pink and a brownish colour. I just want to create all that definition, and the more tones you use, the better, but I wouldn't go overboard by using every colour because you'll just make it really muddy and it wouldn't look very realistic. So the best way is to look at reference photos and just to really get a good sense of what kind of colours would be there. I'm then going in with some of this scab blood. I've got a little dental tool, or a nail art tool would work as well, that I'm going in and just pricking it in and filling in that gap that I've created with the cotton and latex. So here is the finished result for that one. The next one we're going to use is my favourite, it's Artex. This is silicone-based product, or third degree. It is in small little jars. You've got part A and part B. When these two jars are mixed together, it creates a silicone base. This is the fastest drying one out of the three I'm showing today, but it is the best looking one out of all of them. It does have a skin tone in it, which means it's better to match to the skin. It's also smoother and it's more free to use. So with the other ones, it's bumpy or it's really hard to blend out, whereas this one, you can build it up. You can start small and build up, which is really, really nice. So if you do something and you want it a bit more dramatic, you can go in and build up on it, whereas the others, if you build up, it just doesn't sit right. This seems like it's more skin-like, and even the feeling of it when you touch it, when it's dry, it feels more like skin, which is good because you want to replicate skin as much as you can. These are really good little jars to take on you with sets and stuff. So if someone wants a wound that you weren't expecting and you've got it in your kit, you can easily able to do this. So this is one of my favourite ones to use. Latex was a favourite for a while, but once I discovered Artex was my favourite. So I'm just applying parts A and part B now. So part B is the white colour shade and part A was the skin toned one. So on here you can just see I'm mixing them in. You've got to work quite quick once you start mixing them, because once they interact with each other, they start to set. So you have a good few minutes, but with this, I would recommend starting out with latex and then moving on to this once you pick up the speed. But once you move on to this, you'll find it so much easier when creating wounds. And again, like I've said with the previous ones, I do have a base coat of Vaseline on my skin just to create that protective barrier. So on here I am getting the scalpel and I'm just smoothing out all of that Artex onto my hand, making sure the edges are as seamless as I can. Obviously these aren't as good as making full-on prosthetics, but these are good, just inexpensive and ways that you can just do on the go, or if you're not fully prepared with a prosthetic made, these are very good options. So here with the sharper end, I am going in and creating that wound shape, which I'll be filling in just a sec. Again, going in with the powder and just powdering it on to get rid of that shine and to also really help it blend in with the skin. I overpowered this one a little bit and it made it look a bit more white, but that's okay because I'm going to go in with some colour and I'm going to change that. So just going in there now, and with the powder, normally I wouldn't go as harsh, but with this one it wasn't quite set. So sometimes if you are in a rush and it's not quite set, if you just get a bit of powder and you dab it on slowly and then brush over it, that can help speed up the process, but I wouldn't recommend that unless you are in a rush. So now I'm going in with those alcohol based paints, and with the same colours, the red, the pink and the purpley colours, I'm going in and just creating some definition and texture within the skin tone. Again, it depends on preference or reference photo. Here I wasn't working with a reference photo, but if you are, it is better, but it's just because you can see how the body reacts to certain wounds and how it changes within those. So some, when they're fresh, they go really swollen. When they're old, they go quite pussy and they involve different colours. Or bruises, you know, depending on the age of a bruise, would be how dark or light or anything like that it is. So I would definitely recommend looking at reference photos, especially if you're starting out. So here I am just getting some scab blood, and again, like I have with the previous ones, I'm getting that little tool and I'm just filling it in. This is only a rough paint job just to show you what it would look like if you filled it all in and the finished product. Again, using the same scab blood, using the same powder, using the same colours, just so you can see the full difference within each medium. So here we are, that's the finished one for you. Okay, so here we have the scar wax one, which we did first. This is the end result. It's quite patchy, but here we've got the latex one, which again isn't the best skin shade. And then the third one, which is the last one, was the silicone one. This is after I just added a bit more blood and made it look a bit more rough and beaten up. So there you go, there's 3 ways of doing an easy prosthetic or a cut or wound for on a set, theatre, in anything kind of project you're doing. Hope this helps, and leave any comments if you've got any questions or concerns about the products used, or any questions as to what you would like next. But thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.